Thank you all for being here. In particular, I'd like to thank Assistant Secretary General Gilmore and Ms. Walid Abu Bakrain, as our distinguished chair, and all the elders and indigenous representatives we have in the room today. I have the honor to serve as the President of the United Nations General Assembly, and so I get many opportunities to speak at the United Nations. But I know that this is not the same for everyone in this room. That's why today it is your hearing, not mine. And that's why I want to limit myself to a few brief remarks before turning the floor over to you. In doing so, I'll make 4 main points. First, I want to talk about how we got here. It was nearly 100 years ago when indigenous peoples first asserted their rights on the international stage. But they did not see much progress, at least until 1982, when the first working group on the indigenous populations was established. And in 2007, the rights of indigenous peoples were finally set out in an international instrument. Let us be clear here. Rights are not aspirational. They are not ideals. They are not best-case scenarios. They are minimum standards. They are non-negotiable, and they must be respected and promoted. Yet, here we are, more than a decade after the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples was adopted. And the fact is, these rights are not being realized. That's not to say that there has been no progress. In fact, we heard many success stories during yesterday's opening of the Permanent Forum. But they are not enough. Which is why, as my second point, I want to say that we need to do much more. Last September, the General Assembly gave my office a new mandate. It requested that I organize informal, interactive hearings to look at how indigenous peoples can better participate at the United Nations. So that's why we are all sitting here. But before we launch into our discussions, I want to acknowledge the elephant in the room. I know that many of you were disappointed with the General Assembly's decision last year. After 2 years of talking, many of you wanted more than these interactive hearings. We cannot gloss over this, and that's why I want to address it from the outset. But I must also say this. Things may be moving slowly, but they are still moving. When our predecessors formed the first indigenous working group in 1982, their chances were slim. Many doubted whether an international instrument could be adopted. And frankly, it took longer than it should have. But it still happened. So we need to acknowledge the challenges and frustrations. We cannot sweep them under the rug. But we also cannot let them take away from the opportunities we have in front of us. And that brings me to my third point on our discussions today. This is your hearing. So please be blunt. Please be concrete. Please be innovative. Like I have said, we should not pretend that everything is perfect. Major problems persist, particularly at the national level, and we need to draw attention to them. Today, however, we have a very specific mandate, and that is to explore how we can carve out more space for indigenous peoples on the international stage. That's why I ask you to focus on the future of our work here at the United Nations, and to try to come up with as many ideas and proposals as possible. In particular, we should look at the following questions. Which venues and forums are most suitable? What modalities should govern participation? What kind of participants should be selected? And how will this selection happen? We should also try to form a broader vision. This will allow us to better advise the General Assembly's ongoing process to enhance indigenous peoples' participation. Finally, next steps. As you know, this is our very first informal interactive hearing. There will be 2 further hearings, next year and the year after. Then, during what we call the 75th session of the General Assembly, negotiations between governments will start up again. Turning back to today, the immediate outcome of our hearing will be a President's summary. But I'm confident that the longer-term outcome will be yet another step in the direction of change. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is where I will conclude. My main job now is to listen, and I thank you for your attention.